The Galactic Auction House on Meridian 7 Station was the largest marketplace in the entire known galaxy. It was a massive structure with high ceilings, bright lights, and hundreds of screens displaying creatures from every corner of space. The building was filled with wealthy collectors, traders, and powerful business owners who came to buy exotic alien animals. Some wanted them as pets. Others wanted them as workers or for scientific research. The atmosphere was busy and loud, with people talking, bidding, and making deals. Eleanor Hartley was not like the other people in the auction house that day. She was 18 years old, wearing a simple blue jacket that had a small tear in the sleeve. She had saved up money for 3 years by working 3 different jobs just to come to this place. Her friends thought she was crazy. Her family had told her not to come. But Eleanor had always been different. She had always felt something for creatures that others ignored. The auction had been going on for hours. Exotic creatures from distant planets were brought onto the stage one by one. A Vrelian bird with feathers made of real crystals sold for 5 million credits. A Zoshan reptile with multiple eyes went to a wealthy businessman for 8 million credits. Everyone in the crowd seemed excited, clapping and cheering as each creature was sold. Eleanor watched with her heart feeling heavy. She knew what happened to most of these animals. They were taken away to live lonely lives in cages or laboratories. Then something happened that changed everything. The auctioneer brought out a Cthreen. The creature's name was Kale. Cthreen were known across the galaxy as one of the most intelligent alien species. They were dog-like in appearance but much larger and far more remarkable. They had 4 eyes, thick fur, and the ability to produce light from their bodies. This light, called bioluminescence, was beautiful and rare. A healthy Cthreen could be worth millions of credits. But Kale was not healthy. Not according to anyone in that auction house. The Cthreen that stood on the stage was noticeably smaller than he should have been. He looked thin and weak compared to other members of his species. His bioluminescence, which should have been a steady, beautiful glow, flickered on and off unpredictably. It went from bright to dim to bright again without any pattern. There was also a long, jagged scar that ran across his left eye, making him look damaged and broken. The auctioneer began speaking loudly into the microphone, trying to sound excited. He described Kale's basic qualities, but his voice did not carry the same enthusiasm as it had for the other creatures. He mentioned that Kale was a Cthreen, which was good, but then he quickly noted the creature's smaller size, his unstable bioluminescence, and his scar. The auctioneer said these things were defects. He said they reduced Kale's value significantly. Eleanor watched as Kale stood on the stage, looking confused and scared. His flickering bioluminescence seemed to pulse faster, which Eleanor thought might mean he was anxious. She felt her heart break a little when she saw how the other people in the crowd looked at him. They looked at Kale like he was garbage. Like he was not worth anything. The auctioneer opened the bidding. He started at a very low price, hoping someone would bid on the creature. But no one raised their hand. The auctioneer lowered the price again. Still nothing. He lowered it a 3rd time. A woman in the front row started to raise her hand, but then she changed her mind and put it back down. The auctioneer kept lowering the price, speaking faster and faster, trying desperately to sell this animal that no one wanted. Eleanor's mind was racing. She only had enough money to buy 1 creature, and she had been saving for a much rarer animal. But as she watched Kale standing there, unwanted and rejected, something inside her changed. She could not explain it. She just knew that she had to do something. The auctioneer was now at a price that was almost nothing. He was getting ready to remove Kale from the stage without selling him. That meant the creature would be sent away, possibly destroyed or put into a laboratory where he would suffer. Eleanor could not let that happen. She stood up from her seat. All the eyes in the auction house turned to look at her. She was small and young and poor compared to everyone else there. She was wearing old clothes and shoes that needed to be repaired. But she stood up anyway and said the words that would change her life forever. "I will buy him," Eleanor said, her voice shaking slightly but determined. "I will buy the Cthreen." The entire auction house went silent for a moment. Then people started laughing. They laughed at the young poor girl who wanted to buy the broken alien dog. They laughed because they thought she was making a mistake. They laughed because she did not fit in with them. But Eleanor did not care about their laughter. She walked to the front of the stage. The auctioneer looked at her with surprise and then relief. He probably did not care who bought the animal as long as he could get it off the stage. Eleanor gave him all the money she had been saving. It was not much, but it was enough. The auctioneer took her money and Kale was hers. As Eleanor led the frightened Cthreen away from the stage, she heard people whispering behind her. They called her foolish. They said she had wasted her money on a defective creature. They said she would regret this decision. Eleanor did not hear their words. She was looking at Kale and Kale was looking at her. In that moment something passed between them. It was not spoken in words. It was an understanding. Eleanor saw not a broken creature, but a being that deserved better. And somehow, Kale seemed to understand that this young woman had seen him when no one else had. She had seen his value when everyone else saw only his defects. As they walked through the doors of the Galactic Auction House into the bright lights of Meridian 7 Station, neither Eleanor nor Kale knew that this moment would change the entire galaxy forever. Eleanor's apartment was small and quiet. It was located on the outer rings of Meridian 7 Station, far away from the busy markets and wealthy districts. The apartment had only 2 rooms, a kitchen, and a bathroom. The walls were painted a soft gray color, and there were a few plants on the windowsills that Eleanor took care of every day. It was not much, but it was home. Eleanor had lived alone for 2 years, working hard to pay her rent and save money for the auction house visit. When Eleanor brought Kale through the apartment door for the first time, he was shaking. His entire body trembled with fear and confusion. His bioluminescence flickered rapidly, turning colors that Eleanor had never seen before. It went from deep purple to dark red and then back to purple again. Eleanor realized that these colors probably meant Kale was terrified. She did not know what he had gone through before the auction, but she could see that he had been hurt. Eleanor's family had called her when they found out what she had done. Her mother had cried. Her father had shouted. Her brother had said she was throwing her life away on a creature that would never appreciate her kindness. They told her to return Kale to the auction house immediately. They told her that keeping an alien animal was dangerous and foolish. Eleanor listened to all of this, but she did not change her mind. She knew that something inside her had shifted at the auction house. She could not explain it to her family, and they would not understand even if she tried. The first few weeks with Kale were very difficult. He would not eat the food Eleanor prepared for him. He would not come near her when she tried to touch him. Instead, he would hide in the corner of the bedroom, his bioluminescence dim and pale. Sometimes Eleanor would hear him making sad sounds, like he was crying. She would sit on the floor near him, not too close, and just talk to him in a soft, gentle voice. She told him stories about Earth, her home planet. She told him about her childhood and her dreams. She did not expect him to understand her words, but she hoped he would understand her feelings. Every day Eleanor would sit in the same spot on the floor. Every day she would talk to Kale. She would offer him different foods, trying to find something he liked. She would place a blanket near him in case he got cold. She would play soft music to help him feel calm. Most importantly, she asked nothing from him. She did not try to force him to come to her. She did not try to make him do anything. She simply showed him that she was there and that she cared about his well-being. After 3 weeks, something small happened. Kale ate the food Eleanor had left for him. It was just a little bit, but he ate it. Eleanor was so happy that she almost cried. She did not make a big celebration about it. She simply smiled to herself and continued what she had been doing every day. After 5 weeks, Kale moved closer to where Eleanor was sitting. It was only a few inches, but it was progress. His bioluminescence was still dim, but Eleanor thought it looked slightly lighter than before, maybe a pale yellow instead of the dull gray it had been. After 2 months, something amazing happened. Kale rested his head on Eleanor's lap. His bioluminescence changed completely. It became a warm, golden color that seemed to glow softly from within his fur. Eleanor froze, not wanting to break the moment. She slowly reached out and stroked his head gently. Kale's bioluminescence grew even brighter, pulsing with a steady, beautiful light. In that moment, Eleanor understood something important. This creature had decided to trust her. He had decided that she was safe. He had decided that she was worth trusting. As the weeks passed, Eleanor began to understand Kale's bioluminescence better. She discovered that it was not a defect at all. It was a language. When Kale was happy, his light glowed warm gold, just like it had when he rested his head on her lap. When he was curious about something, his bioluminescence turned bright blue and pulsed quickly. When he was playing or excited, it became a vibrant green. When he was sad or anxious, it turned violet or pale gray. His flickering bioluminescence, which everyone at the auction house thought was broken, was actually the most beautiful and expressive feature he had. Eleanor also realized that Kale's smaller size was not a weakness. It was an advantage. He could move quickly and gracefully through tight spaces. He could jump higher and turn sharper than a larger Kthrean could. When Eleanor taught him games, he solved problems in creative ways that a bigger creature might never think of. He was smart and clever and wonderful. Most importantly, Eleanor understood that Kale had never experienced love. The people who had owned him before saw him as an object or a tool. They did not see him as a living being with feelings and thoughts and dreams. They did not care about his happiness. Eleanor cared. She cared deeply. By the 4th month, Cale had completely transformed. His bioluminescence was no longer unpredictable. It glowed with intention and meaning. His fur became shinier and healthier. He gained weight and strength. More than that, his personality blossomed into something beautiful and unexpected. He was playful and gentle and loyal. He loved to follow Eleanor around the apartment. He would sleep near her at night, his golden bioluminescence creating a soft, warm light in the darkness. When Eleanor walked through the streets of Meridian 7 with Cale by her side, people would stop and stare. They had never seen a human and an alien creature together like this. They had never seen such a genuine connection between two different species. Some people still thought Eleanor was strange for buying the rejected Cthreen. But more and more people began to see something beautiful in their friendship. They saw what Eleanor had seen from the beginning. They saw two beings who had found something precious in each other. They saw love that transcended species and defied expectation. And in that bond between human and alien, something extraordinary had been born. Everything changed on a cold morning when Eleanor received an official notice on her communication device. The message came from the Cthreen Collective, a powerful organization that controlled all matters related to the Cthreen species across the galaxy. The message was formal and threatening. It stated that Cale was stolen property from a registered breeding program. The collective claimed that he had escaped illegally and that Eleanor had purchased him knowing this fact. They demanded that she return Cale immediately or face serious legal consequences. Eleanor's hands shook as she read the message over and over. She did not know that Cale had come from a breeding program. The auction house had not told her anything about his history. All she knew was that he had been rejected and unwanted. But the legal language in the message was clear and powerful. The collective had lawyers and resources that Eleanor could never match. She had no money for legal battles. She had no power against such a large organization. Eleanor decided to fight anyway. She hired a young lawyer named David who worked for affordable rates. David was kind and believed in what Eleanor was trying to do. He filed documents with the station authorities explaining that Eleanor had purchased Cale legally at a registered auction house. He argued that Eleanor did not know about any breeding program and that the collective had a responsibility to provide complete information about their animals. The case attracted media attention. News channels started interviewing Eleanor about her fight to keep Cale. Some people supported her. Others said she was being foolish and selfish. But the legal battle was not Eleanor's biggest problem. One evening, Eleanor was walking through the market district with Cale on his leash. It was a busy time with many people shopping and moving between the different stalls. Eleanor was thinking about the legal case and wondering what would happen to Cale if she lost. She did not notice the three figures moving toward her from different directions until it was too late. The first man appeared on her left. He was tall and wore dark clothing. The second man came from behind her. The third man blocked her path ahead. Eleanor's heart began to race. She felt Cale tense beside her. His bioluminescence flickered suddenly, turning a deep orange color that Eleanor had never seen before. She understood immediately that Cale sensed danger. "Eleanor Hartley," the first man said in a cold voice. "We need to talk about the Cthreen." Eleanor pulled Cale closer to her. "Who are you? What do you want?" "We represent certain business interests," the second man said, stepping closer. "We are willing to pay you a lot of money for your Cthreen. More money than you have ever seen in your life." Eleanor shook her head. "Cale is not for sale. Not for any price." The three men exchanged looks. The first man reached into his jacket and pulled out something that looked like a weapon. It was small and metallic with a glowing red tip. Eleanor recognized it as a stun gun, a device that could cause serious injury or even death. "This is not a negotiation," the man said coldly. "Give us the Cthreen or we will take him from you. And you will not like what happens if we have to take him by force." Eleanor's entire body filled with fear, but she did not move. She stood her ground, positioning herself directly between the three men and Cale. She thought about how far she had come with him. She thought about all the trust he had placed in her. She thought about how broken he had been when she first brought him home. She could not let these people take him. "No," Eleanor said, her voice steady despite her fear. "You cannot have him." The first man raised his weapon. Eleanor closed her eyes, waiting for what would happen next. But what happened was something no one could have predicted. Cale's bioluminescence erupted in a way that was absolutely incredible. It was not the warm gold of happiness or the blue of curiosity or the green of play. It was a brilliant, explosive cascade of colors that Eleanor had no words to describe. It was like a firework display made of pure light and energy. The bioluminescence did not stay inside Kale's body. Instead, it burst outward from him like a wave, creating a shimmering energy field that surrounded Eleanor completely. The three men screamed and fell backward. Their weapons sparked and failed, the electronic components destroyed by the energy that radiated from Kale. The stun guns fell to the ground, useless and smoking. The men scrambled to their feet and ran away, terrified by what they had witnessed. But something even more remarkable happened. The energy field that Kale created did not hurt Eleanor. Protected her. It was warm and gentle, like an invisible shield made of light. Eleanor realized that Kale had not attacked the men with his bioluminescence. He had simply created a protective barrier around her. He had used his abilities to defend not with violence, but with pure protective energy born from his love for her. The entire incident lasted only a few seconds, but many people in the market had seen it. Their communication devices captured video of what had happened. Within hours, the footage was uploaded to the station's news network. Within hours after that, it was being broadcast across multiple star systems. By the next morning, billions of beings across the galaxy were watching the video of a small K'threen creating an incredible display of energy to protect a young human woman. News channels around the galaxy started reporting on the incident. Scientists began analyzing the footage, trying to understand what they were seeing. Social media platforms filled with discussions and debates about what Kale's abilities meant. The video of Eleanor and Kale went viral across the galaxy. People who had never heard of either of them were now watching and rewatching the moment when Kale's love for Eleanor had manifested as pure, beautiful, protective power. Eleanor held Kale close to her in the market, his bioluminescence slowly fading back to its normal warm gold. She did not know that this single moment would change everything. She did not know that the galaxy was about to become very interested in her and her extraordinary alien friend. All she knew was that Kale had protected her, and she would always protect him in return. The video of Eleanor and Kale spread across the galaxy faster than anyone could have imagined. Within 24 hours, the footage had been watched by over 5 billion beings from hundreds of different species. News channels on every major planet were discussing the remarkable display of bioluminescent energy. Scientists who studied alien creatures were publishing papers analyzing what they had seen. Social media platforms were flooded with comments, theories, and debates about what it all meant. Major news networks sent reporters to Meridian 7 station to find Eleanor and interview her. She became famous almost overnight. Her face appeared on screens across the known galaxy. People recognized her when she walked through the market. Some wanted to touch her or shake her hand. Others wanted to take photographs with her and Kale. Eleanor had never wanted to be famous. She had only wanted to help one creature that needed her. But now the entire galaxy was watching and waiting to see what would happen next. Scientists from the most prestigious research institutions in the galaxy began sending messages to Eleanor, asking permission to study Kale. They wanted to understand how his bioluminescence worked. They wanted to know why his protective energy had such incredible power. A team of researchers led by a brilliant scientist named Professor Charles arrived at Eleanor's apartment with advanced equipment. They explained that they believed Kale's abilities were connected to something called quantum entanglement, a scientific concept that had never been fully understood before. Professor Charles told Eleanor that K'threen possessed a unique neurological structure that allowed them to form deep emotional bonds with compatible beings. These bonds, he explained, created a type of quantum connection between two minds. When the emotional bond became strong enough, it could actually enhance the abilities of both creatures involved. Kale's protective energy had not come from aggression or anger. It had come from his love for Eleanor and his desire to protect her. The strength of their bond had activated abilities in Kale that even the K'threen collective did not fully understand. The revelation shocked the scientific community. It also created new questions that demanded answers. If K'threen could form such powerful bonds with other species, why had they been kept in breeding programs and treated like objects? Why had they been enslaved and controlled? The ethical questions began spreading through media outlets and social platforms. People started demanding to know more about how the K'threen collective had treated these intelligent creatures. Journalists began investigating the K'threen breeding program. What they discovered was horrifying. The collective had been keeping K'threen in terrible conditions for decades. They bred them like livestock, separating parents from their young. They performed experiments on them. They extracted genetic material without consent. They treated these intelligent beings as nothing more than property to be bought and sold. The journalists published their findings in detailed reports that shocked the galaxy. The Cthreen Collective tried to defend their practices, but their defense only made things worse. They released statements claiming that their breeding programs were necessary and scientific. They said that Cthreen were too dangerous to have freedom. They argued that their methods produced better and stronger Cthreen. But these statements were contradicted by the video evidence of Kale. Here was a Cthreen that the collective had deemed defective and unwanted. Yet this defective Cthreen had displayed incredible abilities and had shown more intelligence, loyalty and love than any creature the collective had produced through their breeding programs. Public opinion turned against the Cthreen Collective very quickly. Massive protests erupted on dozens of planets. Beings from hundreds of different species marched in the streets, demanding that the collective be held accountable for their cruelty. Governments began investigating the collective's practices. The United Galactic Government launched an official inquiry into the breeding programs and the treatment of Cthreen. Within 3 months, the Cthreen Collective lost all legal authority. The breeding programs were shut down. Thousands of Cthreen were freed from facilities where they had been imprisoned. The leaders of the collective were arrested and faced serious charges for crimes against sentient beings. The entire structure of Cthreen society began to transform. For the first time in centuries, Cthreen were recognized as equal members of galactic society, with rights and freedoms like any other intelligent species. The criminal syndicate that had tried to take Kale away was also exposed through the investigation. Journalists traced their activities and discovered that they had been stealing rare creatures and selling them to illegal laboratories for years. The syndicate members were arrested and imprisoned. Their illegal operation was shut down completely. Eleanor became a symbol of something beautiful and powerful. She represented the idea that one person's simple act of kindness could change an entire galaxy. News outlets called her a hero. People wrote songs about her and Kale. Children across the galaxy learned her story in schools. She received countless messages from beings who told her that her story had inspired them to be kinder and more compassionate to others, even those who seemed different or broken. Eleanor did not feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had simply done what was right. She had seen a creature in need and she had helped. That was all. But she understood that her actions had created a ripple effect that spread far beyond what she could have imagined. Kale had also become famous. Scientists wanted to study him. Documentaries were made about his life and his bond with Eleanor. Cthreen from across the galaxy reached out to him, asking how he had achieved such a powerful connection with a human. Kale remained calm and gentle through all of this attention. His bioluminescence glowed steadily, sometimes gold when he was with Eleanor, sometimes blue when he was learning something new from the scientists. The most important change happened within the Cthreen species itself. They began creating new societies based on freedom and choice rather than breeding programs and control. Cthreen scholars studied the concept of emotional bonding and discovered that it was not limited to bonding with humans. Cthreen could form these powerful connections with many different species. This discovery opened up entirely new possibilities for relationships and cooperation across the galaxy. 6 months after the video was released, Eleanor stood with Kale on the observation deck of Meridian 7 Station, looking out at the stars. His bioluminescence glowed a warm, peaceful gold. She knew that their lives had changed forever. But more importantly, she knew that her simple act of love had changed the galaxy itself. 1 year after the incident in the Market District, Eleanor and Kale stood on the deck of a large spacecraft called the Unity Explorer. The ship was specially designed for long-distance travel across the galaxy. Its sleek silver walls reflected the light of distant stars. Eleanor looked out at the vast darkness of space, thinking about how much her life had changed. A year ago she had been a poor girl working 3 jobs just to survive. Now she was traveling across the galaxy with a purpose that mattered to billions of beings. The Galactic Council had asked Eleanor to become an ambassador for interspecies harmony. They wanted her to travel to different worlds and teach beings about compassion, acceptance, and the power of love between different species. Eleanor had accepted the position because she believed in the message. She wanted to show the galaxy that differences did not have to be a reason for fear or conflict. They could be a reason for connection and understanding. Kale was her partner in this mission. Together they visited planet after planet. On the water world of Aquarius, they met with the Aquarians, a species of intelligent beings who lived beneath the ocean. Eleanor and Kale showed them recordings of their bond and explained how love could connect even the most different creatures. The Aquarians were moved by their story and began opening their society to other species. On the desert planet of Crimson 7, they met with the Crimson beings, a species that had been isolated from the rest of the galaxy for thousands of years. These creatures had believed that all other species were dangerous and should be avoided. Eleanor and Cale spent weeks with them, teaching them about kindness and acceptance. By the time they left, the Crimson beings had decided to join the United Galactic Government and begin trading and communicating with other worlds. On the forest world of Verdania, Eleanor and Cale worked with a species called the Verdani. These beings had been abused and enslaved by a more powerful species for centuries. They had lost hope and had stopped believing that life could be better. Eleanor told them her own story of how Cale had seemed broken and worthless to others, but she had seen his true value. She told them that they too had value, no matter what others had said about them. Cale's bioluminescence glowed with warmth as Eleanor spoke, and the Verdani felt hope begin to grow in their hearts again. As Eleanor and Cale traveled, they inspired rescue operations across the galaxy. Organizations were created to find and free creatures that were still trapped in illegal facilities or unethical breeding programs. Thousands of alien animals were liberated and given the chance to live free lives for the first time. Many of these creatures went on to form their own bonds with other beings, creating networks of friendship and love that spanned entire star systems. The Cthreen species continued to transform. They established new communities based on freedom and choice. Young Cthreen were no longer bred in laboratories. Instead, they were born naturally and raised by families who loved them. Cthreen scientists made incredible discoveries about the nature of emotional bonding and quantum entanglement. These discoveries led to new medical treatments and technologies that helped beings across the galaxy live better, healthier lives. Eleanor's family eventually came to understand and accept what she was doing. Her mother traveled with her on several journeys across the galaxy. Her father wrote a book about Eleanor and Cale's story, which became a bestseller on dozens of planets. Her brother started a charity organization dedicated to rescuing mistreated animals. What had begun as family conflict had transformed into family unity and shared purpose. Years passed. Eleanor grew older, but her determination never weakened. Cale's bioluminescence remained strong and vibrant. Together, they continued their work as ambassadors. They visited hundreds of worlds. They met thousands of beings from different species. They spoke to governments, universities, and ordinary communities about the importance of compassion and acceptance. One of Eleanor's greatest achievements was the creation of the Harmony Institute, a place where young beings from different species could learn together and form friendships. The institute was built on the planet Neutral Station, a place that belonged to no single species. Students from across the galaxy came to study science, art, history, and culture. Most importantly, they learned how to respect and understand beings who were different from themselves. Many lifelong friendships and even romantic bonds formed at the Harmony Institute, just as Eleanor and Cale had formed their bond. Eleanor also worked with governments to pass new laws protecting the rights of all sentient creatures. Laws were created that made it illegal to enslave any intelligent being. Laws were created that gave freedom of choice to all creatures. Laws were created that protected those who were different or considered defective by society. These legal changes spread across the galaxy, creating a more just and fair universe. The criminal syndicates that had once hunted rare creatures for illegal purposes were completely eliminated. New trade systems were established where creatures were never considered property. Instead, they were recognized as beings with rights and dignity. The old auction houses, where creatures had been bought and sold like objects, were converted into sanctuaries and research centers dedicated to helping animals. One evening, many years later, Eleanor stood on a mountain overlooking a vast valley on the planet Harmony Prime. Cale stood beside her, his bioluminescence glowing softly in the fading light of the sunset. Below them, they could see communities of many different species living together in peace. Cthreen lived alongside humans, Aquarians, Verdani, and dozens of other species. Children from different worlds played together. Families of mixed species worked and laughed together. Eleanor reached down and stroked Cale's fur gently. His bioluminescence pulsed with a warm, golden light. She thought about that day at the auction house when she had stood up with her life savings to buy a creature everyone else had rejected. She thought about how that single moment had set in motion a chain of events that had transformed the entire galaxy. The universe was not perfect. There were still problems to solve and injustices to correct. But it was better. It was kinder. It was more just. And it had all begun with one young woman who had seen value in someone everyone else had discarded. It had begun with love. And love, Eleanor had learned, was the most powerful force in the galaxy. As the stars began to appear in the night sky above her, Eleanor smiled. She and Cale had not just changed their own lives. They had changed the galaxy itself. And their work was far from over. There was still so much more love to share, so many more beings to help, so many more worlds to visit. Eleanor and Cale looked forward to every new day, knowing that together they could make the universe a better place.